Welcome. I'm Helena de Munk. I'm your host on the Power Talks for Remarkable Females. So, do you know a woman that goes out fishing and catches her old salmon and then cleans it and puts it in the freezer and eats? And she does that in Anchorage or around Anchorage, Alaska? I didn't, but now I do. And you will meet her too today because I am here with Christine West. And Christine is joining us all the way from Alaska. She is a people strategist, a chief behavior officer at the Business MD. She's an emotional intelligence strategist. And we are going to talk today about how to skyrocket results by shifting from transactional to authentic relationships. Christine, welcome. I am thrilled to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Elena, this is awesome. I'm so happy to share with your audience. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and to the audience, if you are watching this or if you are listening live, then just join the conversation. There's a comment box below wherever you are looking or watching from. Join the conversation, send us your feedback, send us your hi, where are you listening in from, send us your questions. And if you are watching or listening to the replay, very welcome also. Just if whatever you want to share with us, put it in the comments because they are monitored and we will get back to you and connect with us. Connect with me, connect with Christine on LinkedIn, on Instagram, wherever you find us, so we can keep this conversation going.
Yes.
Right. So,
Yes.
Christine, the original title was Skyrocket Sales. And I said, we can take this broader because these authentic relationships don't only skyrocket sales, they
Right.
skyrocket whatever we do. They skyrocket meetings,
Right.
negotiations,
Right.
promotion negotiations, salary raise negotiations, getting people on your team negotiations, getting projects for your team negotiations, things like that. So it is such a amazing topic for so many people. And yeah, I can't wait to have this conversation with you. Where do you want to start?
It's something that, and I thank you for your suggestion to change the, title to be a little bit broader. And I'm so open to that because you are so spot on about the whole entire thing about the application of so many different areas beyond sales. Because when it comes to skyrocketing the result in fill in the blank, folks, for whatever that result you're looking for, from my perspective, why I suggested, because when I look at relationships and I look at where things get chaotic, they get ugly, they get heavy, is usually when people have that transactional type of relationship. And for me, just bringing that up, it's where we have mismanaged expectations. I thought you were on the same page. I thought that this is how we're going to do it. And there's really no connection,
Mhm.
or it's cold. Now, some people may say, what's wrong with that? I think that, at least from my perspective, it's really about, if you have a true relationship with somebody, a true connection, you're more likely to speak up when something's not so good, or even when something is good. It's not just that false positivity about things. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I do believe that transactional relationships and interactions, they do work in some situations if there's not a lot at stake or if the interaction will be short, like
Yeah,
you buying something on a market,
yeah,
things like that. But the moment that people are involved, that people are committed, that people need to do the job, that they have to go the extra mile, that there needs to be trust because there's going to be difficult times. If you don't have that authentic relationship, it's going to be extremely tough because
it
there will
is.
be, as you say, you will scratching the surface of what is going on, and people will not trust you enough in order to report problems or issues or mistakes. And
Yeah,
so it's a very difficult situation. And yet, I see a lot of people having that kind of relationships, both in personal life and professionally. I see it when people are leaders in organizations or team leaders or project leaders because they think it's easier and it's faster and they think they lose time with connecting and building the relationship and building the trust. Not everybody, luckily, But and that's where it goes wrong, right?
Yeah, and that's the to me the mistake is
Mm,
is the misperception. Initially, of course, it's faster. It's faster because I don't have to deal with emotions. I don't have to deal with your problems. I don't have to hear any back talk, your opinions. Just go do it type attitude. But yet, when people don't feel heard or they don't feel safe or they don't feel as though they have any even interest in telling you anymore,
mhm.
to me that's a tall telling sign that you miss the mark as a leader with
Absolutely.
folks.
Yeah.
And you can have, say for example, let's just speak from the context of, let's say you're running a team or you're with a group of peers, peer executives for example, and let's just say everything stays at the surface, you're dealing with other your peers egos, and then everything is very offensive, you never really get to that point of understanding where somebody else is coming from.
Yeah.
And
Chris-
yeah, there's mistakes then.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Christine, I'm going to interrupt because we have
Oh,
Eric here with us. Welcome, Eric. Eric
hi
is
Eric.
somebody you knew because he says, good to see you again, Christine.
Hi
And he
Eric.
has a question about authenticity.
Okay.
Authenticity is valued highly among the emotional intelligent leader, absolutely. They know how to navigate when to be real versus
Yeah.
put on the structured corporate face to get
Yeah.
the job done. What advice would you give to new leaders on how to navigate this without being perceived as too much or too corporate?
Oh,
Christine.
I love it. I love the question, Eric. Thank you. What I would get, first of all, the leader, the young leader, needs to understand what the relationship is with their emotions. Okay. So if you don't understand the emotions that you're putting off, you're going to make that mistake of possibly being way too much. And because emotions are energy. And sometimes because I have big energy. And so depending upon where I'm at, I may need to tone it down a little bit because I may be overpowering for some people. And
Mm,
so it's having that relationship with one's own emotions, and the more awareness you have to what emotional state you're in. So for example, if you're walking into a corporate building where people are not that aware, they may be super talented at what they do, and at things such as, let's say, there you have the folks that are in charge of operations and the folks who are in charge of finances and the folks who are in charge of technology, and they're super good at that, but they're not really all that good about their own emotional states. Coming in and overpowering them may be not a good place to start. So to answer Eric's question a little bit further, is being that person that says, okay, I need to know where I'm at. I need to understand how I'm looking at things. And then also be that person that comes in and says, okay, I'm not taking anything personal out of this, all these people around me. I'm coming in to read people and gather data about them. I'm going to get a baseline for this culture and decide, once I understand my own emotions, about how I can apply my own emotional states. If that's somebody that wants to be connecting to people, being more authentic with people, wants to have more authentic conversations, get people influence the culture or the other leaders or the staff. So that's how I look at it, is okay, where am I? Who is
mhm.
who's in front of me? It's not what I want them to do yet. It's about where am I at, and looking at, this is where they're at too. So I get an accurate read and I'm not projecting myself upon them or coming to conclusions saying something such as they're so negative or this is how they should be. There's no shoulds in this conversation. It's purely about looking at it from the perspective of, hey, let's have a baseline. That's what the best
Mhm.
answer I can give you. And hopefully, Eric, if you have further questions, please join in. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like this question also because it brings up for me, there is a lot of confusion about what it is, authenticity.
Yeah.
Some people tell me this authenticity, I'm fully in there because I want to be able to express whatever I feel and whatever I think because this is me. And I say, let's have a look at that. How do you define authenticity? Because for me, authenticity is being very much aware of your values
Yeah,
and behave and act and speak in alignment with those values. And
spot
as a
on.
leader, it is also so important to know what role you have. We have the relationship with ourselves, we
Yeah,
have the relationship with others, that's how we see others, and we have the relationship with the world, that's how we see the world. And we can spend three more of these power talks only on that, but let's keep it condensed. But as a leader, it is important that you understand and you have a vision on what kind of leader do you want to be. People do not think about that because there's so much in the managerial role and in the budgets and the targets and the objectives and the goals and things like that, that they don't think, who is it that I want to be? What
right.
kind of leader do I want to be? Do I want to be,
Correct.
or do I need to be? What does my team need? Do I need to be visionary? Do I need to be coaching? Do I need to be democratic? Or do I need to be pace setting at in this moment? Because we have some deadlines and there's competition and things like that. And if this is what my team need and if this is what the organization need, then how do I show up? What instruments, what narrative, what body language, whatever I have, do I bring to the table in order to take up that role and manifest what we as a team need? And this is something that we tend to forget because we are so busy and life's so hectic and there's so many deadlines and so many meetings and things like that. But reflect on that in order to define who you are as a leader, because this is the only way to be authentic. And then act and talk in alignment with that vision on who you want to be and who your team needs you to be. That is extremely important. And you will see a
Yeah.
shift in the energy and in the results, right?
Yes, I agree with that because here's something that you brought up that I want to comment on. Authentic is not about being sloppy with this
Mm.
blurting out, being a stream of consciousness and just blurting out everything in the world that comes to your mind or every single thought, because there's godzillions of thoughts that come through our brains all at once. And people change their minds all the time based on, that's why I suggested gather data, because it's something that being authentic is really about, okay, I know who I am. So I'll just give an example because this is really a good time to, because you brought up, introduced me with the fishing. And so just so to be clear with everyone, most people in Alaska go out fishing. So I'm not unique there. So
To me, you are, Christine. You are amazingly unique.
yeah.
And it is
So,
for a lot of people in the world. Let us know in the chat if it is unique to go fishing and fish your own salmon. Yeah. I
okay. Oh, cool. But here's a great example about being authentic is being that I was invited on a friend's boat in him and his dad. So two guys. The one friend, he doesn't even like salmon, which is fine. So I was really happy to go out on their boat. Now, because I showed up as knowing who I am and what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. So I ask a lot of questions based on my own weaknesses to understand, okay, the boat, this, that, and everything else, coming with a learning attitude. But the thing is when we got into some chaos, that really chaos out there, that it was a little odd that, okay, we ran out of gas because the one guy didn't, he thought that the gas tank was enough. We had gasoline, but we were just drifting all over the place. Now, because me, I wasn't leading, I wasn't the boat captain originally. I was just there as, okay, I'm here to catch fish, which I did well. But then as soon as we got into chaos, so this is where moi as took over in the leadership. Not that I know how to drive a boat really well, but it was literally getting up, grabbing the gas can, not listening to these two guys argue with each other about whose fault it is, and filling up the gas tank. And then knowing that we hit an eddy where there was a lot of different like logs, and where the boat was just about to flip. It was like a shifted my weight to, because I'm not going to flip. And then throwing the anchor out, because the thing is that somebody has to act fast. It's not about a blame game, and that's part of knowing who you are and literally being authentic and literally telling these guys to shut up because it was, that wasn't helping.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not saying do that in all situations,
Yeah.
but when you're in chaos, that there's an emergency, and then once the boat got restarted, it was okay, that anchor has to come up. It's not about anymore, and this is about leadership and about emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Aware, it's not about whose job it is. It's about it's got to get done.
Exactly. Mm. Yeah,
And
because you're in the heat of the fire.
yeah, the
Absolutely.
heat of a fire. And
Exactly.
that's where my strength is, as far
Mhm.
as stepping up. Now, once things got calmed down, then I sat back down. Okay, I don't need to lead anymore.
Mm. Yeah. I like that. I like that because we think that we have to develop a leadership style, or that most people think they have one leadership style. Basically, that's one style that they have developed
Yeah,
consciously or unconsciously, and it works fine for them until a
yeah,
certain moment, and they
yeah,
think that this is their style, but this is just a preferred style. I always compare it with a golfer who has a golf bag full of these clubs, and
yeah,
he is just assessing the situation, like the wind direction and the strength of the wind and the humidity of the soil and the distance and whatever. And
yeah,
then he picks the club that will make him win. Yeah, that's what a golf champion does. And so basically, a leader, if you want to build these authentic relationships, it's not like you have to use the same style all the time. You have to be able to assess what is the situation. Is there something burning?
yeah,
Then you will not be democratic. Like, I mean, if you are in, how do you say that in English? The people that, are taking out the fire, if you are like the commander of a fire brigade, and there's some building is burning and there's somebody at the eighth floor at the balcony, you're not going to ask your people like, okay, how do you feel, guys? There you go. But there are other situations where people need coaching, or where people need a democratic meeting in order to have all the experience and all the expert input on the table. And then there's also situations where you need pace setting, where there are deadlines, or where there are situations that the quality of the output is in danger. So it is very important as a leader. And if you want to skyrocket results, it's
yeah.
very important that you can assess the situation and also the intentions and the motivation, and also the expertise of your team that you're working with
Yes,
in the moment, and then
yes,
decide what leadership style you're going to apply. And then some people say, but that's not authentic. Of course it is authentic, because
yes.
your style is not your authenticity. It is your outcome and your leadership behavior and manifestation that is authentic. Do I make sense, Christine?
Yes, absolutely. Because that's why I brought that up. Because different scenarios.
Exactly.
Because if I was coaching somebody, so for example, now that I have this information, and since this was my first time fishing with these folks, that I knew them in a different context. So now that a different environment, and this applies to work teams, is that if you're having a calm situation, you're just, well, everything's going well, and you can maybe coach and aspire and have those conversations. But yet, in my example, where it was chaotic, it was where things could have
Dangerous.
gone from very fast to, could have went from, hey, we're just out of gas and we're just drifting because there's a river, and not having control over where we're going. And that's
Exactly.
part of leadership, about steering the ship, steering the
Exactly.
boat. And these two guys, like human nature, and this happens a lot of teams blaming, who are we going to blame? And that's very corporate. Who are we going to blame for this? You can get to who you want to blame later. From my perspective, in that situation, being that I'm very good in chaos, I'm very good about cutting through it and getting the job done. But it's understanding who you are, because I didn't need to lead the other things.
Yeah.
And that's part of leveraging people and being authentic, and also being able to bring out the best in them. Now,
Mhm.
I understand family members fight. I get it. And I get that they have their own relationship, and it's easier for them in that moment to be blah, 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 blah. And from my perspective, it was, I don't have time for this. This is, and
Mm.
so that's part of, to me, leadership and
Mhm.
skyrocketing the results. So if it's something that So for example, in a team or executive environment, or if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, it may be something that, what is my read on this and how am I showing up? So for another example of the flip side, let's say if I went into a state of fear and panicking, and that, what could have been the result of two guys that are blaming, and if I went into fear and did nothing? I don't know.
Yep,
I don't know, but I'm bringing that example because look at how many teams make do that. Now,
exactly.
one can argue with me, will say that's still authentic, and maybe that's who you truly are. But sometimes you do need to get over, okay, this is where I'm at, but this is the situation. Like when you set a building on fire, that is scary. Yes, it is scary, but you don't have time to analyze whose fault it is and who started the fire and who did blah blah blah. You can do that afterwards.
Exactly. That's very interesting. And that is also leadership and emotional intelligence is very close. I also am practicing conversational intelligence, which is a derivative. It's not really a derivative because it is a body of work on its own by Judy Glaser, who is
Yeah,
unfortunately not longer with us. But it is about how you show up as a leader also in being able to observe, to get yourself out of the sometimes out of the drama, but
yeah,
out of the situation and see what is going on. So somebody who can say, okay, you are in the middle of a meeting or you are in the middle of a negotiation and things are not moving for 1 meter, and you are able to say, instead of being there and pushing and getting emotional in the process, getting yourself out of the process and say, wait a minute, what is going on here? Let's just stop
yeah,
and look at what is going on here. What is bothering us? What is it that we don't know? What is it that we don't bring to the table? Because there's so much going on, especially if you work together with a team with more people. There's so much under the surface that is not outspoken, that
yeah,
people keep from themselves because there's no trust, because there's so much competition, especially in organizations. There's so much competition that they think they might be asking something that other will see as stupid, or that they might, they feel that if they say something, people will be able to blame them for something. And so a lot of things are not said,
yeah.
and then things are not moving. And a lot of
Right.
leaders then try to push things through and nobody responds. And because there's no reaction or feedback, the leader thinks, yeah, okay, that's it. Everybody is at the same line.
Yeah.
And then the door of the meeting room opens, and then things start to happen at the coffee machine or at the copier. And it's a completely different thing that was what was agreed on in the meeting room.
Yes.
And I
Well,
have that, and they say, I don't understand that. And nobody, they don't open their mouth and they say nothing. And if I ask if there is everything fine, any questions, no, everything okay, yes. And then they do something completely different. But if you observe these meetings, there's no authentic and deep conversations.
yeah.
There's
So
just
that's the
one way
point.
direction of words from the leader to the team.
That's so true because, and that's why I bring up, and I'm going to go back to my point, is that people miss that first critical step that I said. Is that it's observing. In my example of this recent weekend, I needed to observe who I was around to create a
Yeah,
baseline of how these people are going to behave in this context. Now,
exactly.
I learned new information in a different context from camp to boat.
Mm,
So it was observing and also recognizing and bring that up because some people during emergencies or different situations, like you're giving the example of a meeting, some people get tongue tied and they freeze.
mhm.
Some people are just, I just want to go along to get along. Going along to get along, depending on the context, it may not be your best bet.
Exactly.
And
Mhm.
also observing in a situation. So for example, we're bringing up talking about results. So if you're looking, since you brought up a negotiation, so let's say one team needs to negotiate with another team, because a lot of corporations may have processes that go, like their products and services may need to start, say, in a product department, And then they need to, then once sales sells them, it goes to the product department. And then there's a certain procurement that goes through within the operation of whether it's engineering or another type of department. And then there's those who say implement. So if any of those processes, or maybe there's something that somebody missed the mark in this department, and they need to negotiate how to do the process better and get everybody on the same page. And I'm just
Mhm.
speaking from examples of internal things. So it's sometimes, if you do not have a baseline of looking at, okay, this is how this group of people are behaving, this is what I can expect. Most people don't do that step. Most people go in it and say, you should be doing this, you should be doing it my way, you should be doing it according to my liking, how I see it.
Yeah,
Or, yeah. And then usually the response is, this is the way we do it. So live
exactly.
with it, live with it. And that, and,
Live.
and you don't, and no change happens because that first step is missed.
Exactly.
And so that's why I am really about, like, how I operate and how I teach and how I coach, and about an authentic relationship. It's not about that you're authentic like me. It's about that you understand that you're willing to have that conversation, whether it's a conversation to say, you know what, I get your point that we could do better. We do
Mhm.
lack efficiency.
Yeah,
We do have run over meetings. The meeting is scheduled for an hour, and now we're in here for 3 hours.
yeah. I like that. And now that you bring it up, that is something that I do with my teams. I do with team coaching. And I did that before, but in conversational intelligence, Judith Glaser has this very worked out in an amazing concept, and it is the terms of agreement.
Yeah,
And you don't even have to do, you can do that even if you are already working as a team together and things don't work. But a terms of agreement is in the beginning of a collaboration, especially for longer term projects, that you sit together with everybody and that you agree on how you are going to work together.
yeah,
Basically, you agree on the quality of the interaction.
yeah,
Yeah. And this can be about the duration of meetings. It can be on the timing of the meetings. It can be on we let each other speak. We don't interrupt each other. We don't yell. If we have questions, we bring them to the table, things like that. So it is basically like, how are we going to deal with each other? What will be the
yeah,
quality of our interactions? And I always advise that even if your relationship or your team is not new anymore, but you feel that you're stuck, do this exercise. Do this for half an hour, okay? And if the trust is gone, do it on post-it notes. Yeah. So let
yeah,
people write one post-it notes for one rule and then get everything together and see what comes there and agree, make a kind of a charter. Like these are our rules as a team on how we interact with each other. And this is building so much trust. And it is basically creating team leadership.
yeah.
And it's so easy and we don't do it.
Exactly, because what I'm hearing is really about how to establish respecting everybody.
Exactly. Mm,
And because respect goes a long way, because if you really consider it, most people, when they feel disrespected, and this is from an emotional intelligence perspective, is that, okay, you disrespect me, now I've hurt feelings, and now I don't like you, and I'm being real overly simplified right now.
mm.
It, but then once I don't like you, I don't trust you, and I don't want to hear anything you got to say because I already took it personal. And so you hurt me. So therefore, I tune you out. And now I'm going to be obstinate and I'm going to, disrespect you back. And so one could say, okay, isn't that both parties being, authentic? Yes and no.
So
Maybe you're
no,
being
yeah.
authentic. Maybe you're being authentic and you're hurt, but
Mm,
yet it's something that most people, when they're at the transactional level, will just go into that place of, this is how I feel about so and so. I'm writing them off.
mm,
I only have to work with this person, so I'll show up to the meeting and I won't be cooperative. They may not say that out loud, but they think it.
exactly.
They do things as far as, okay, I showed up and you're going to get the bare minimum. I'm never going to bring up what my issues are with you. Now,
It's passive aggressive.
Yeah, passive aggressive. So instead of saying something like, and this is from emotional intelligence, being expressive and being aware of how you're feeling. So let's say if this is subordinate to their leader where you're feeling disrespected. Now, I don't suggest, here's the mistakes. I'm going to, share a mistake that I hear people do. They may say something such as, you did blah blah blah, you disrespected me. Okay, that's common mistake, and I get
Mm,
it. But yet a better way of phrasing something is saying something like, I need to be around a team that shows up on time. I need a team to be around to be productive, part of this team. I need clear direction. You're not accusing anybody, you're sharing what your needs are. And so that is mistakes in communication that people make all the time. And it's getting out of this whole entire passive aggressiveness and telling everybody else on the team. And then everybody starts digesting your opinions. And it's something that it's getting clear about what your own needs are. And that's why I originally said it's about the relationship with you, the relationship with your own emotions.
exactly.
Because
Mm,
let's say if you're constantly going to meetings and you're the leader of the meeting is 10 minutes late all the time. And so 10 minutes of your day, and then there's a bunch of time wasters in the meeting, and then you're just talking, there's no accountability, it goes run on, and then you feel your time is wasted. So instead of arguing or being passive aggressive or saying to your coworkers things such as, oh hey, I don't really, he or she is always late, disrespecting us, just have that honest conversation to bring that awareness to that leader. Or if it's a peer meeting of leaders,
mm,
hey, I need to be around a group of folks that we start on time, because this is how we get better results, how we respect each other.
mm,
Or let me know that the meeting will start 10 minutes later so that I am good with my time.
yeah. Mm,
I'm just bringing that up. Or things such as other things that could possibly happen amongst people, the dynamics of people,
mm, yeah.
is because
Yeah,
being authentic is knowing what you need.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And indeed, it is the way to find, because sometimes people say, I don't find the way to say this. I don't have these words ready. And then things happen. And then 1 day later or 1 hour later, I think I should have said this, but in the moment I don't. And so this is practice. This is
Yes.
practice in terms of, if this happens, to reflect on what happens and why these emotions occur and how you can express them in a way that make a change, that make the other person or the group understand that there is something, not in terms of taking it personally, but in terms of the group dynamics, in terms of the energy of the group, and in terms of the outcome, that what the group is supposed to deliver.
Yeah.
That's what it is about.
Here,
Because your emotions and what it triggers with you is something personal, but it's also something that has an impact on the group results.
yeah, I've had, here's an example, and this is past clients. I'm just speaking examples. Is, and this is an executive teams of examples. Now, and this is why when I look at human dynamics, workplace dynamics, is that lots of people are very talented at the CXO, whatever their position is. So I'm just going to say whether it's the COO, the CEO, the CFO, CIO, head of HR, it doesn't really matter. It's just that had that top leadership. Now, those who may not have dealt with their emotions, maybe when we're speaking about taking things personally, it's being aware of, if you're in that room with executives and maybe you're tongue tied or you're getting triggered by something, that of understanding what's going on with you emotionally instead of projecting it out on the rest of the team.
Mm,
And I bring that up, and not in a therapeutic way. It's, this is just human stuff. because we all get triggered.
Of course.
Okay. So it's understanding, why did you get triggered to get angry? Why did you get triggered to feel anxiety? Why did you get triggered to be happy? And this can be very subconscious after you get used to this habit
Mhm.
of taking responsibility, instead of saying things such as, every time this person's in the room, that person reminds me of my parents that were jerks in my childhood. Or, and the deal is, if that's what you're going through your head, is that your leadership team is not your parents.
Exactly.
That's a sign that something inside of you is needs to be dealt with.
Exactly. Mm.
And it's not about walking around. Being authentic does not mean walking around and saying, you did this, so that my parents did this, so therefore you're wrong. That's not
Mm.
emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And that's not
Exactly.
being authentic. Being authentic in why the relationship with yourself, your own emotions, is really about, where are you at when you're coming to the meeting? So it's also, I'm going to take it another side, that is perfectly human. We all have stresses. We all get tired. We all are overworked at times. There are things in folks' personal lives. As people are getting older, they have responsibilities to, whether it's kids, spouses, maybe older family members. And it's not saying that you're going to use your workplace as a dumping ground for your
Mhm.
problems. You're not. But it is a way of sharing with people sometimes, of saying something such as, listen, I am dealing with a lot of personal things and I'm a bit stressed right now, just to warn everybody. So I am listening. So if I am a little short, please just know that's the reason. It's not personal.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
if you set people up for where you're at, that way they're not taking you so personal either.
Exactly. Because there's context. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
And if
Absolutely.
people don't know that what's going on with you, and I'm not saying going into overindulge, I'm not saying overshare. I'm not saying that you repeat, like if you have dramas, at
Mm.
home, or if there's, or even that leader who is frustrated with their team. It's not to say that you indulge every little detail, but it is an emotionally intelligent conversation to say to another leader that is having really great results, and saying something such as, hey, I've noticed that your team is running in sync and you guys just seem to flow. What's your secret? That's a good question.
That's a very good question. Absolutely. Yeah.
Stuff about being authentic, it's going back, Alina, it's going back to when we're transactional. And this is how I view transactional. So, for example, and I don't know about European stores, but here in the States, we have these self checkouts. And so it's really funny because the self checkout it has a camera of what you're doing and putting in the bag, so that you
Yeah.
don't, so that
Of
make sure there
course. Yeah.
no mischief, because obviously
Mm.
there's no trust there, and that people will do the right thing. So you have no relationship. You're just buying your goods, putting in the bag, and then you walk out with your receipt, and then you show the human at the door, what, okay, here's my receipt, I paid for it. There's really not much there.
Mhm.
There's no substance.
Yeah.
Humans have bad days, they have good days.
Yeah.
Being
Absolutely.
being
Mm.
authentic is knowing thyself.
Yeah.
Here's something else I want to bring into this conversation that happens with people, and this has to do with professional and personal relationships, and this is a major mistake, is we always want to freeze the version that we meet people in and never give them the opportunity to grow. That's how I met you. You were this wonderful, you were behaving how I wanted you to behave. What happened to you?
Mm. Yeah. That's very beautifully said. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. We label based on an impression or on a face or on an experience. Everything is constantly evolving and growing and changing. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm.
so that's part of good emotional intelligence. Good leadership is about adapting.
Hmm.
And going with understanding as people grow, as we grow, our outer world and how we see people and how we affect people is going to change.
Yeah.
We may not like the changes that we see all the time, but again, it's constantly going back to, okay, I'm gathering new data.
Yeah. And I'm
And
curious. Yeah.
it's being
I don't
curious.
judge. Hmm.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
here's something else I want to put in the conversation, that when people show you how they are, believe them.
Hmm.
It's not about, so many people, I hear this all the time, and I love to hear if how you hear this, is so many people I hear when somebody says to me, convince them of that. I don't see things as convincing anyone.
Hmm. Yeah. I that's very interesting because there again, this is like this was for me the missing link that I found also in the body of work of conversational intelligence, because we are talking about transactional, which is very surface. It's like me informing you of what I'm going to do and you informing me, and that's it, and it's yes, no, and bye, and nothing different. And then what I see in a lot of organizations and what I see in life, what I see in politics, what I see everywhere is positional conversations. I
Yeah,
have an opinion, I have a vision, and
yeah,
you have probably another one. And so let's start talking about that, and I'm going to convince you. And
yeah,
then basically, either I am verbally stronger than you,
yeah,
or I have a higher position than you. And so I convince you because there's this dynamics of convincing. And then basically, I'm putting it very black and white now. That means that there's one is winning and one is losing, or
yeah,
you're compromising. And compromising for me is a sub-optimizing. Also, if you look at like the Harvard negotiation principle, William Ury, it's compromise is sub-optimizing. So
yeah,
basically, these positional relationships and positional interactions and conversations is something that I saw, and I always felt like there must be more than that. And I saw also things that were more than that, but it was difficult to grasp it. And so Judith Glaser calls this transformational conversations
uh-huh,
and co-creational conversations. And basically, it's you and me sitting together around a project or a goal,
yeah,
and you just start from a blank space and a blank paper.
yeah,
And I trust you, you trust me. We bring in our expertise, we bring in our goodwill, and we co-create a solution out of curiosity, out of potential, out of options, out of creativity, things like that. And this is an amazing process. And I'm not saying that we should do that every day in order to decide what we are going to cook for dinner.
yeah,
If we are like parents and we have three children and we have a busy job, then probably the things related to food will be transformational or transactional or positional, because I want my children, for example, to eat healthy food and things like that. But in weekends, it might be interesting to co create the food with your children and to learn them about nutrition and these and things like that. But if you have important projects, if you have like long-term goals with your team, and you can have a transformational or a co-creational conversation and relationship where you start in trust, the most amazing things are happening. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that is very important. Basically, I would say there's these three levels of conversations and
yeah,
of relationships. And
right.
we don't need to be in this third one all the time. But when it really matters, please go there. Yeah.
Yes, you brought up something, your example about, because everybody eats. Okay, so no matter what type of food, so this is not about nutrition or the type of food, whether you're a carnivore, a vegan, a vegetarian, or anything else that I don't even know about, is that, to me, a transactional conversation about food would be more something along the lines of, this is what we're eating, eat it.
Exactly. Mm.
Or, and a little bit more open conversation would be, this is what we're eating today, and because for nutritional reasons, this is where food comes from. Having a dialogue about food,
Yeah.
because, for example, I wasn't raised in Alaska, but I was raised in Chicago, where we didn't think about where food came from. It came from a store, so it was very transactional. And it was, okay, you're hungry, you eat. Now I live in an environment where I'm willing to work for my food because I
Mm,
want to know where it comes from. Or I want to know the soil that I have in my backyard garden. I'm the one who planted that. So I know where it came from. So these are conversations that are a little, they're deeper.
exactly.
And it's interesting because if I do go to a potluck, people do, attendees actually label the ingredients because today people have allergies, people have preferences, they have, food affects everybody a little differently and based on food choices. So to me, it's more of having that open dialogue that is, and it's not to have these constant conversations, this is why we're doing it. I'm not saying in leadership that you're every single day spending having a dissertation on why you're going to do something or justify it.
Exactly.
But once there is a authentic conversation where you're in sync, then people don't need the dissertation.
Yeah.
Then
Mm,
what you're instructing them to do, it's okay, it's already ingrained, this is why we're doing it, this is why it's important, this is why it's important to, if I want more leads, it's important to respond to those leads in a timely manner. If I want better results, it's about bringing to attention when the problem's small. It's not about convincing somebody that if you know that there needs to be a change in the organization, it's not waiting. It's about starting to build up those relationships to get people on board with you,
mhm.
and showing them, hey, this is not really a good idea, this is going to hurt us. So from a visionary leader, this is going to hurt us later. I can
Mhm.
foresee right now in the United States, we've had in the past couple of weeks, anybody who's alive probably is aware of the political things that are going on that are crazy here, of how fast things happen.
Yeah.
So, why I bring that up is because it's the same way in organizational life or business life, is you don't have time to complain. And that's how I see it.
Mhm.
To me, you have time to put into building relationships so that you can get the things done that need to get done, and not sit there and waste time because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I know what's going to happen the rest of the day.
Yep.
It's
Exactly.
something in organizational life with leadership and being able to be that authentic leader. And I'm not saying you're going to be communicating in a way that sounds pitiful. Stop sharing pity.
Mhm.
That's another thing that I want to bring up, is too many people bond the pittiness of things or the
Yeah. In the
complaints.
victim role. Mm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that when you're sharing your vision, it's more in a language about the possibilities in being
Exactly.
prepared and adapting, not about all the wrongdoings and who's to blame for the wrongdoings. Look at it this way, and this is how I see, and this is really being from the responsible position. We all have a role. We all have a role.
Yeah.
If you're in that leadership team, guess what? You got to look in the mirror. Everybody has to look in the mirror. We all
Mm.
have a role.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it is very important to have a very clear view on that role and your vision on that role and how you want to take it up. Because what you say is indeed in organizations and in life in general, things are happening and there's a lot of unpredictability. There's the VUCA world and there's a lot of other acronyms in order to
Yeah,
describe how difficult the world is for right now, which is true. We cannot deny there's a lot of uncertainties.
yeah,
And the thing is that if you are clear about who you are and
yeah,
your role, if you have a well-defined vision, if you have a well-defined vision also with your team on where you want to be as an organization, where you want to be, then basically whatever happens, even if you don't have all the data, because it is impossible to have all the data right now in order to make decisions and to make choices. But if
yeah,
you can make your decisions and your choices aligned with who you are,
yeah,
aligned with your authenticity, aligned with your values, with your vision and your mission, then this is the right thing to do. And I
yeah,
guarantee everybody who has not tried that, try it, and you will feel the power and the strength of your decision making process,
Yeah.
because you align it with something that you have done on your own as an exercise, or as a team, as a group, as an organization, in terms of vision, mission, and values.
Mhm.
Authentic values, not the ones that were dictated and then put on the wall, and you pass them every day, but you actually, you don't care, you don't even know what is the meaning, the real work on values. And there's enough coaches and facilitators to help you to do that. It takes one session with a coach to get you very far already on your path of your vision and your values. So I can only invite you to do that. This is something that will bring you a lot of strength and empowerment in your decision making process, right?
Yes. Here's
Mm,
something else to what you just said that I want to remind people,
mm,
anybody listening, whether you're an ambitious entrepreneur, no matter what level of leadership within your organization, or if you're part of a role that's part of the staff of a business, is you are most powerful when you're calm and grounded. And
exactly.
that is part of emotional intelligence. Because if you're getting triggered by everything, you're not thinking clearly.
Exactly.
It's okay to know that you're peeved about something. You can be peeved and still be calm and grounded. But I can tell you something that, and this may not be the exact quote, but I know Warren Buffett has quoted about emotional intelligence that it's something that you will make better decisions and even you'll build more wealth with having higher emotional intelligence by being calm
Mhm.
and grounded. And that's a guy
Absolutely.
who has a great relationship with money and who doesn't want more money. And so the thing is, I invite folks to pay attention to how much time you are spending with making fast, impulsive judgments because of your own mismanagement of your own emotions.
Yeah.
Now, I'm no economist, but I would love for economists to actually even give me a number about when people waste that amount of emotional time and get distracted in their storytelling and their narratives because they don't understand, they project on others, what that costs an organization.
A lot.
I agree.
There is, I think it's Stephen Covey Jr. And there's a video around. If anybody is interested, just send me a message. There's a video on YouTube, and it is the cost of bad trust. And it can be bad trust in yourself, bad trust in organizations, how much it costs if we are not grounded, if we are not authentic, if there's no trust in the relationship we have with ourselves, with others, with the world, the
Yep,
cost is amazingly high.
it
Yes,
is.
it is.
It
Yes, the
is.
cost of low trust. I think if you can Google it on YouTube, the cost of low trust. It's a very interesting video. It was by Franklin Covey organization. Steve Covey, the son of Stephen Covey Sr., the guy of the Seven Habits that everybody should know, or that I invite everybody, if they never heard of it, just
Yeah.
buy that book. Because if you're talking about leadership, I mean, there were my basics in leadership many years ago. But absolutely, the cost of low trust, the cost of not managing your emotions is extremely high. Yeah.
It
And
is. It'll
mm,
cost you your relationships because think about this is
mm,
that when I brought up about the pity, this is so true about humans. And this
mm,
is whether it's personal life or organizational business life, is when you connect to somebody, are you connecting on the joys or are you connecting on the complaints? So, how much time are you spending wanting to, hey, I want to tell you my story because I'm getting something out of this. You're giving me pity. I get to justify my story, blah, 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 blah. Versus sharing a story about the joy
mhm.
of what happened.
Yeah,
And being that more visionary, I want people to get on board with me
exactly.
instead of being. Here's something else about being an authentic leader from my perspective, and one that has higher emotional intelligence is that you want people on board with you, and you're not competing with them, you're collaborating with them.
Yep.
You're looking it's so it's similar to being okay, I know that I want to get results. So that baseline, how are these people, who's talented at this and that, and bringing people together to do stuff to get that result you're looking for, that project or whatever it may be. It could be something as simple as back to the food. What are we having for dinner? And
Mm.
maybe you're having a cooking party. And how are you going to orchestrate that so it's fun for everyone instead of chaotic and messy and sloppy? Now, I understand cooking can be sloppy sometimes, and so can doing business. But
Yep.
can you still make it fun and where you're adapting and learning through stuff? And again, it's I invite also folks to stop the fault finding.
Mm.
Just stop.
Yep. Absolutely. Christine, we are at the top of the hour. So we're going to close the thing here today for today. I know that we could fill probably another 2 or 3 hours without any
Yeah.
problem, just continuing, but I try to respect also the time of our listeners. What I really appreciate is about how you brought this topic into the Power Talk for Remarkable Females is that it was like it might feel a little bit like we were jumping in many directions, but that is because we wanted to bring you all different situations where these concept applies. And Christine, you brought so many practical examples. I love it. I am sure that we can all relate with at least half of them, which is how we learn and how we can also start to embody them and integrate it in our lives. So we have not brought these concepts of emotional intelligence and authenticity at high level. We have brought it in a very practical and pragmatic way. And I really thank you for this because this makes it very relatable and understandable for everybody who has been here and who is also going to listen to the replay. So thank you so much for that. I would say, do you have one last piece of advice? Do you have one last piece of advice, a sentence, one thing that we can end this session with?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Helena. And what I would really encourage you is learn the best relationship to be your best self and really invest in yourself to be the best leader that you possibly can. You'll never lose that investment.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us, Christine, and looking forward to continue co-creating with you and learning about your amazing life there. For you, it's not amazing, but for me, it is fishing salmon in Alaska. I love it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to see you again. And for everybody who is here or watching or listening to the replay, thank you. Thank you for staying with us. Connect with us. Ask your questions. Send us your feedback. We love to hear from you. Connect with us on LinkedIn also. Follow us on YouTube or wherever social media platform that you're following us or listening in from. And hope to see you next week. Take care.
Yes.
Bye for now. Thank you, Christine.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. Okay. Bye bye. Bye, everyone.